Hello and welcome to a special edition of Carved in Stone. As I've stated previously, I'll occasionally do a point 5 episode when I either bring on a guest or there's just something I want to say that has nothing to do with the typical Mount Rushmore format of the show. This falls into the latter category. I don't have a guest, but I wanted to talk about a couple of things. So, welcome to episode 5.5. It was a big sports weekend despite my Eagles being on a bye. I'm going to focus on Saturday, even though there was a ton of football on Sunday, as well as a second Flyers game. I'll talk about the Saturday Flyers game briefly in a few moments. On Saturday, I know I'm in the minority of people in the US who care about soccer, but I do. At least I care about the MLS. I'm not into overseas leagues, even though hardcore soccer fans will tell you the quality is a lot better. I need a dog in the fight to care about soccer. And the Philadelphia Union played Game 2 of their playoff series against the Chicago Fire in the Windy City. The Union took Game 1 on penalty kicks and were looking for the sweep in Chi-Town and did not disappoint at all. Well, they disappointed the live crowd, but they didn't disappoint their supporters at home. I'll tell you that. The Union had little trouble putting out the Fire. They scored thrice, and goalie Andre Blake recorded a clean sheet as the Union won 3-0. The first goal was scored by Ty Baribo in only the 8th minute of the contest. That's very early for non-soccer fans. Fire goalie Jeffrey Gall, who was starting in place of the injured Chris Brady, got 1 day's notice that he'd be in net. Gall misplayed a ball where he had a chance to pick it up, but decided to try to dribble around Baribo. Baribo made the steal and buried the goal. Baribo would add another goal in the 16th minute, and a similar mistake by Gall led to a goal by Bruno Damiani. Gall tried clearing a ball that he again should have picked up, and it led to an easy goal by Damiani. The Union had that 3-0 lead in the first half and would never relinquish it. The Fire did appear to net 1 goal, but it was called back on a handball. So, obviously I'm a Philly sports fan, and I know damn well that the same thing would happen here. But I felt so bad for Jeffrey Gall because he was being relentlessly booed by his own supporters every time he touched the ball after those 2 mishaps. And yeah, like I said, that would happen in any city and to any player who made 2 critical errors like that ended up costing their team the game. I don't deny that. But the guy is still human. I think we forget, and I'm definitely not exempt from this, that despite athletes being compensated well for what they do, they are still people. So my heart actually kind of went out for this guy. You know, that's the kind of game that the ensuing venom he's going to hear from fans can really mess a person up. Athletes aren't immune to mental health effects. We always say, you know, when we criticize them that it's part of the game, but it's easy to forget that there's a person under that jersey. Now, strictly from a standpoint of soccer, I do understand anyone who blames the loss more or less solely on Gall. You can say, well, the Union would have just won 1-0 instead of 3-0. That's not necessarily true. The game would have had a much different pace if those 2 colossal mistakes don't happen. Maybe the Fire make a game of it. They probably do, to be 100% honest. Who knows what the outcome would have been. The Union likely still win. They are the better team. They were the MLS Supporters Shield winners this year, finishing with the best record in MLS. This, by the way, is a huge deal for the Union. They are a great road team. They are a phenomenal home team. And the Supporters Shield guarantees every one of their home games is played at... every one of their playoff games is played at home. Round 1 is the best of 3, and the remaining rounds are all single elimination. So having that one game where you play your best is huge. Now, I have the MLS Pass so that I can watch the Union, If you don't and are going to follow the playoff games that are being aired on regular TV, let me tell you that the Union play a defensive and counterattacking brand of soccer. They are very comfortable with their opponents possessing the ball and extremely patient as they wait for the enemy to make a mistake. This can be a little frustrating to watch. To me, as a big Union fan, I don't really care. I want to win, but I can see how it would be a little boring for a casual viewer. The Union fired their coach of 11 seasons, Jim Curtin, prior to this season, and hired Bradley Carnell. That is my dog squeaking, by the way. I think Curtin was an Andy Reid type situation where his time had just run its course. The Union had a terrible, terrible 2024 campaign. The coach change happens, and boom, they are on the brink of their first MLS Cup. I do think they'll pull it off this year. I'm not going to get into the devastation of the 2022 championship, which was the last time they were close. The one team I'm hoping not to play is the Vancouver Whitecaps. That can only happen if both teams make the finals. But the reason I don't want to play them is because the Whitecaps absolutely destroyed the Union this season in the Union's worst loss ever. In fairness, there were some penalty shots, and the Union were missing goalie Andre Blake, although up to that point, his backup Andrew Rick had been doing a great job filling in. They ended up losing the game 7-0, which is almost unheard of at this level of soccer. You know, you have to chalk that one up, I've said, to just being one of those days. But mentally, I'm going back to that. It could still really affect the Union if they have to play Vancouver again. So, as much as I'd like to get some revenge on the Whitecaps, I'm willing to wait until 2026 and hoist the cup without going through them. Dupe! Switching gears from the pitch to the rink. After that game, the Flyers fell to the Toronto Maple Leafs 5-2. An unfortunate collision between the Flyers' Matvei Michkov and the Leafs' Chris Tanev led to Michkov being called for interference and Tanev being carted off on a stretcher. It was incidental contact, but you never want to see that happen. Toronto immediately wanted Michkov's head. I think they looked at the play and realized it wasn't intentional because after he got out of the box, they still tried to go to Michkov into a fight, but it wasn't as intense as you'd expect after a player gets hurt like that. Michkov handled it like a vet. He gave no indication that he would succumb to the pressure and drop the gloves. That's not easy when an entire team wants your head. And this is a 20-year-old. So to show that kind of discipline is really, really good and encouraging for the future of the Flyers. Because he is, he's the future. He stayed composed. And again, when Tanev was carted off, Philadelphia gave a nice ovation for a fallen foe, just like what happened a week prior when Cam Scadaboo went down against the Eagles. You, of course, won't hear about that on national TV. The Flyers went on to lose that game 5-2. And when the Flyers wrapped up, I wasn't done yet. I jumped right into Game 7 of the World Series. I joined the game already in progress, involving another Toronto team, the Blue Jays, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. I joined in inning 6 or 7, but I got to see so much craziness. From the ball getting stuck in the wall, to the long balls at the right time, for the Dodgers that is, to the close as it gets plays at the plate, to seeing former Phillies take the hill on the biggest stage, to the outfield collision that would have won the game for Toronto if it hadn't somehow been caught, to the double play to end the game. I'm not going to break it down because it's already been done so much, and I don't think anyone's going to listen to me break it down again. I'm just going to say that with baseball, I usually don't get into it that much if it isn't the Phils. I usually catch some of the World Series, and I like to see at least the last inning or two of the clincher, but I was really, really into this one just because it was so good. You had one game go 18 innings. I couldn't stay awake for that one. I caught some of Game 6 Friday night when the kids went to sleep after trick-or-treating. It was such an amazing series. I love it when games are that good, or series in general are that good, but I love it when games are that good and I don't have a care about the outcome. There's no anxiety. I can just enjoy the show. Shohei Ohtani, of course, a huge factor as always. Will Smith had the eventual game-winning home run, and here's a fun fact: Will Smith has been part of a World Series champion every year since 2020. Not the same Will Smith 6 times, just a Will Smith 6 times. And by the way, not the dude who will slap the taste out of your mouth if you don't keep his wife's name out of your mouth. So just to wrap things up a little bit here, I'm not a college football guy. If there was any fun stuff that went on Saturday in college football, I don't have a clue. But I did attend the Delaware Norfolk State game at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia on Thursday night. My son got to see the Link for the first time. Head coaches Deshaun Jackson of Delaware State and Michael Vick of Norfolk State squared off, 2 former Eagles. Big part of the reason why we chose that game. There were some dignitaries in attendance. On our sideline, we saw Allen Iverson and Mr. I Won't Fall on Fumbles in the Super Bowl, Cam Newton. They did a great job, the Link staff that is, of making it feel like a home game for DSU, with the lighting, fireworks for the Hornets when they scored, and painting their field their colors. Every time I saw a fan wearing a Norfolk State jersey, I thought it was a Green Bay Packers jersey at first. They look so similar. DSU won the game. Like I said, I'm not a college football guy. I was really there to show my son the stadium without paying the ridiculous Eagles prices. So that was cool. He said he likes Citizens Bank Park better, which makes sense. It's a nicer stadium. They play 81 games a year, a minimum of 81 games a year, that is, at the bank, as opposed to a minimum of 8 at the Link. So, of course, the bank is superior. This podcast, by the way, is not endorsed, sponsored, or affiliated with any of the teams, leagues, universities, or players mentioned. Images and video of the Delaware State versus Norfolk State football game come from my personal collection. All other player images are sourced from Wikimedia Commons under appropriate licensing. That's all I wanted to say on this little off-schedule rant. You might be able to hear my dogs barking at each other in the background, not sure. Thanks for hanging with me for episode 5.5. I'll be back this Friday with the regular format as I give you my Mount Rushmore of WWE superstars of the golden era. Oh, and I almost forgot. The Eagles are in first place in the NFC! If the season ended today, home field advantage and a first round bye, baby. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Go Birds!